Alright, in the last video we got to the point where we have our 3D models made, at least the quick start versions. Still a long way from final drafts, which we'll go over that graphical stuff for 2 and 3D in much greater detail before long. Just kind of getting started here, but we have our models and then converted them to the correct form to work with Panda3D. So we can come over here into our test version and add that. We're not quite ready to add it to our writer yet, which I should probably point this out. I did make a slight mistake when I added a side note on without thinking ahead on it. When we did the 2D version, I said this line was going to be here every time, and I copied and pasted and put it right here. And this is an append method, can only take in one thing at a time. So I split that back up. I guess there's two choices. With two things, they each need to go into their own append method, or this needs to be extend. Extend is the one that can take multiple items and add them to a list. An append is one at a time, and I expected there to be lots of lines, so I figured each one needs to go into its own append method. But I kind of jumped the gun on that anyway. We aren't ready to add that to our file writer until we get some objects made. We're just doing a quick start here. For now, we just want to look at what's necessary to bring a 3D model into Panda3D so that we're ready to add it to our game writer in a little while after we start setting up some objects. So I'm going to go in the 3D test version here, open that up. So we saw this is enough to open a window and get that started, and a whole lot of things are built into this show base class that we created a child of to customize for our game. So we can bring our models right in. Some stuff about lighting and cameras, I think I'll do that at the end. I'll bring the models in first and then do the lighting and cameras. And again, we'll come back and clean this up and make some objects for this. I'd really like to try to design an object that would work for both the 2 and 3D ones, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to put them all in one thing at this point. So still going to do a little bit of planning before we get to that point, but right now just bringing the models in, and then we're going to come back and add some basic movement before we even get there. So to bring these in, everything in Panda3D works as a tree. So first off, we have to bring it in. I'll bring in the human first. So self dot, I'll just call it human. So we'll create a reference to it that is a class of this object we're extending. And Showbase has something already built in to load images a number of different ways. For a simple 3D model, we want to just call load model. So self.loader.load model, and then what model do we want to load? Well, over in the images folder, we have that thing, human.bam. We have that BAM file over there. And then there's some attributes we could set up. Self.human.scale, bringing it at 111 because those starter files I have already scaled correctly when creating them. I like to do that instead of rescaling it here, but that just wanted to point at that. Self.human.position. Whoop. That was supposed to be set scale. Sorry about that. Set scale and set position, abbreviated. And obviously we also have getters for those as well to do some work with at a later point. So I'm just going to put the human at the origin. I just wanted to point at those methods. That's what it would have been without typing those anyway. So I just kind of retyped the default values, but wanted to make you aware they were there, I guess, because often we will need to do them. And then once we have that brought in and scaled and rotated and all that stuff like we want, everything works as a tree. So we have to set a parent to this. So we're going to take that human object we just created and reparent it to self.render. And self.render is just obviously the main rendering object in this showbase class. But it doesn't necessarily have to go directly up the tree to that. So we're on the tree, so we're at the first branch off of that. We could make like, I don't know, some sort of prop for the character to carry, a backpack or something, and then parent that to the human object. And since the human object is parented to the render, that would still be enough for it to show. It just has to be in that rendering tree somewhere. With this object self.render is way up at the root of it. And actually that's enough to show the human. We might have to, well, I'm pretty sure we're going to have to adjust one little thing here. Go ahead and open PowerShell to run this. Oops. I was trying to move that out of the way and copy the address. So set location to this address and give that a test. Python test3.py. Oh, something's not defined. Self is. Which one did I type? Where did I get a typo at? Self should be defined. Oh, I'm at the wrong indent level. This is inside of that define method, so it needs to be over here. Let's try that again. So there's our window. There we go. If I zoom out, so here's kind of the other issue. Whenever you see this, if you bring your model in and you're just seeing this white one, so we can move our camera with the mouse. So right click and drag zooms in and out, left click and drag pans, and middle click and drag gets the angles. It's very unintuitive, it takes some getting used to. But if it looks like this, all you're seeing is white, that is because there's no light in the scene. So we need to add some light, and I'm going to go ahead and do something with the camera while I'm up here. That way we don't have to zoom out to see it, because in this showbase class we have all the stuff we need. So we can ask for this camera object and set a position for it. And our player's at the origin, so I'm going to just offset it a little, maybe 15 over, -7 in another direction, and 4 up or so. And then call this self.cam.lookat function, and we'll look right back at the origin so that we're looking at the character the whole time. But whenever it looks like this and we don't see any colors, everything just comes in as a big white blob, that's because there's no light in the scene. So we have to set up some light, which is kind of another built-in thing. So we'll need a reference to it. We'll call it self.light, and then we can ask for several different types of lights. A whole lot are built in. And for the 4 lines to construct this, only the first line changes. Do we need ambient lighting, direct lighting, directional, spotlights, pin lights? That's the only thing that would change, is what type of light do we have. And we do have to give it a tag. So I'll just call this a light. The tag is something that's, some of the background stuff uses the tag. So we do have to have that there. And then we need a self.light. We want to set some sort of color or tint to it. So in the parentheses, this is going to feed in as a tuple with 4 parts. So in RGBA. So in a tuple, we need some value for red, some value, so maybe 80% green, 80% blue, and then our alpha value, with 1 being no transparency and 0 being fully transparent. So I'm just going to go with no transparency on the light for now. And once we create it, then we'll call attach light, and that's going to be that render object. And we want to attach a node to it. Attach new node, and the node we're going to attach is that light we just created. the self.light, and then render.set light, and attach light. And it's probably worth noticing that the rendering tree I referred to as self.render, whereas the overall background rendering stuff I just put render itself. Just a subtle difference there, but kind of an important one. So that'll give us a light, and it will always look exactly like this. Well, I guess the first two light lines will change. What type of light do you want? And we'll see those in more detail soon. And an RGBA value for it. And then we just attach it as a new node, create a new node, and then attach it to the render object. So if we come over here and give this another run, I have to import a library. That's kind of an important thing too. So this is just one of our tools. So from Panda3D, another one of the mini folders that was imported, there's a core module that has tons and tons of tools that we'll need. So I'm just going to go ahead and import everything from that core. Ambient light is one of the things in the Panda3D core. Now it should know what that is, unless I spelled ambient wrong. There we go. So now we can see the colors came in with our character. And the zooming's still there, but I moved the camera back a little bit so that we could see it. And it looks like we're coming on 12 minutes on this video, so I'll do this as a two-part and bring the land in the next part. Well, I guess there's time to do it. It's only going to take a couple minutes. I can do that very quickly. Actually, I can pause the video and do that, because it's going to be exactly like we brought the human in. We're just going to call it land instead of human, or ground instead of human. So I went ahead and typed that up. The exact same thing. We just create a reference to our loader.load model. And I did set the position down just a little bit since our character's at the origin. That way the ground's below it. And we'll get gravity and things going later. For now, we'll just put our character right above the ground and then move back and forth in an upcoming video. And then again, reparent to self.render in order to add it to the tree. So save that and should be able to give this a run. Oh, I spelled position wrong. POS for position. I'll try to give it a run again. There we go. So looks like our character is standing right above the ground. So I guess the next step is to make some simple movements. And I'm going to go ahead and come back and do the 2D and 3D movements. But that's how we add things to the models to the 3D one. Which before we get to our game writer object, we want to set up some objects to handle all of the model's stuff about the model. And then that object we create is what we'll add to it. So we'll do that. But before we get there, I guess along with loading them in, the other part of the quick start is to move it. So now let's go back to the 2D version and move our character around that world with the WASD keys, and then we'll be back over here to move our model around the 3D world with the WASD keys. So see you in the next video for that.